Hello boys and girls, welcome to the Math Club. In this video, we're going to talk about the difference between theoretical probability and experimental probability. Now, theoretical probability is calculated without doing an experiment. For example, the theoretical probability of rolling a 4 with an ordinary dice is 1 out of 6. So basically speaking, theoretical means in theory the probability of rolling a dice and getting 4 is 1 over 6. And it's 1 over 6 all the times because it's in theory. We didn't do an experiment to find this, but this is in theory. And this is the difference between them. But with experimental probability, you have to do an experiment to find the probability. And it means that I might roll a dice and not get 4 at all because of the experiment itself. So there's a difference between theoretical probability and experimental probability. So we have to focus on this, understanding that theoretical means in theory. Now, let's take a look at the other key point and understand what does experimental probability mean. Now, in this key point, we talk about experimental probability. In a probability experiment, a trial is repeated many times and the outcomes recorded. For example, flipping a coin 100 times and recording heads or tails. The relative frequency of an outcome is called the experimental probability. Experimental probability of an outcome equals frequency of outcome divided on the total number of trials. What does that mean? It means in experimental probability we have to do an experiment. As he said here 100 times, he flipped the coin and then he recorded the relative frequency of having heads or tails. And an experiment, or if you're having an experiment, it's not it's not going to be 50-50% or 50-50 chance or even chances of having heads or tails. I might get 1 heads and 99 tails, for example. So when we talk about the difference between theoretical probability and experimental probability, we have to understand that theoretical probability is in theory and experimental probability is talking about an experiment itself. Now, we're going to study some questions about experimental probability and then we will understand more what does it mean. Question 3. Omar dropped a button on the table lots of times. It landed either round side up or flat side up. He recorded the results in a frequency table. Now these are the results of him dropping this button. Now let's take a look. The round side up came 8 times and the flat side up came 42 times. As you can see the difference between the times that they came. Now basically when you talk about theoretical probability, you will say that the round side up has to have 1 over 2 chances and the flat side up same thing, 1 over 2 chances. So even chances for both of them. But when he did the experiment, he didn't have even chances, as you can see. Now let's take a look at the questions and see how do we answer questions like these. First question, he wants you to work out the total frequency. Work out the total frequency. Now, working out the total frequency is easy. You just add the frequencies together. So 8 plus 42 equals, very good, 50. So the answer is 50. This is the total frequency. Now, question B. Work out the experimental probability of the button landing rounded side up, this is 1, and flat side up. Now, when he says experimental probability, it's the same as relative frequency. Now, what do? You just take the frequency and divide it on the total number to get the frequency of that event. Now, the rounded side up is 8 over 50. Very good. So let's write it here. It's going to be 8 over 50. Good. And the next one, flat side up, is going to be, very good, 42 over 50. So 42 over 50. Good. So basically, we just take the frequency and divide it on the total number. That's it. To get the experimental probability. It's like getting the relative frequency of that event. Now, let's take a look at the next question. Question C. He drops the button 100 times. How many times do you expect it to land rounded side up? Now, we're going to use these frequencies or these relative frequencies and answer questions like this. Now, in the question he said he dropped it 100 times. He wants to know how many times do you think or do you expect to land on a rounded side up. Now, the relative frequency of the rounded side up is 8 over 50. So we take the 8 over 50 here, and we multiply it by number of times, which is 100. And the answer will be, very good. When you have a question like this, you can simplify. You can say when we divide 50 on 50, it's 1. Divide 100 on 50, it's 2. And then we multiply the 2 by the 8. It will equal 16. So the answer is 16 times that it will land on the rounded side up. Now, if you don't know how to do this, you can use the calculator. Now, let's remove this, and this, and then go check with the calculator if the answer is 16. In the calculator, you multiply 8 by 100 and then divide it on 50, or divide 8 on 50 and then multiply it by 100. Now, let's go use the calculator and then come back. So, 8 divide 50 equals, and then you multiply it by 100 equals 16. Now, let's go back. So as we said, the answer is 16. Now, let's read the discussion here. When you repeat an experiment, will you get exactly the same results? What do you think, guys? If I took the same button and throw it 50 times again, will I get the same results here? Very good. I won't, because this is an experiment. This experimental probability is not always the same. It might be the same, but it's not always the same. So if I take the button here and throw it again, I might not get the same probability. The probability will change. Or I might not get the same frequencies that Omar got, okay? And this is how you answer questions like this. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.